Now, to recap the previous session where we spoke about the opportunities being sent out to the market and to our suppliers, and where we went through the whole process of ensuring responses and ensuring that we get and that we receive, SPX receive the responses in a very effective format, and also a format that we can use and that we can utilize easily, and to take that and those responses further into the process by engaging with our buyers on those responses. We're not really engaging at that stage. It's very important that we understand that this session is really to investigate how we are going to manage those responses. And therefore, we are calling this session the short listing of suppliers. So, yes, we understand the opportunities were sent out, the alerts. We received responses from our suppliers, and now we have a process in place where we manage those responses, and eventually taking those responses and listing them. And that is where we get to the term shortlisting. We have an initial shortlisting and then a final shortlisting. As we will proceed in this session, it will become clearer, hopefully, to you on how this part of the process pans out. The outline of our session. Linking suppliers to specific opportunities will be our first topic. I'd like to just say on this point, we, as a first step, when we get those responses, we evaluate them. SPX, we have the knowledge, we have means, we have mechanisms where we can then almost evaluate our respondents or our suppliers that have responded. And then we can link them to specific opportunities. And there is a methodology on that, and we'll talk on that a little bit later. The second point is additional search for suppliers where no responses were received. If we've sent out an alert and we didn't get any responses, we can't just leave it there, because there are many reasons. There could be reasons why there were no responses. And we have to investigate what the reasons were that there were no responses. It does happen. We must understand that. In instances where the technological requirements of the products that we put out on the alert or the list was not really, it could have been maybe above the capabilities and the capacity of our industry. That gives us a very good idea as well where our strengths are in a country. So this has got a very, very good secondary reason for doing that. A secondary, shall we say, a result for us to follow up. The next point that we are going to look at and talk about is the initial shortlist. And the initial shortlist merely is where we delete obvious non-starters. Because as we get our responses, as we look at our suppliers that have responded, we look at our supply base that have come to the fore, there are non-starters, as we know, people that we see, companies that we can immediately see according to their profiles and other means that they will not qualify to be able to do the work or be able to supply into that market. And then the other point which we will be discussing is further evaluation of suppliers and the final shortlist. And that's where we will be starting to get really excited, where we get a final shortlist. With SPX in its hands, we have a final shortlist of suppliers that we can now bargain. We can use them as a bargaining power to matchmaking with our buyers. Right, linking suppliers to specific opportunities, our first point. A logic starting point on linking suppliers to specific opportunities would obviously be looking at their profiles. So the profiling information is crucial. In the previous sessions, we did talk about the profiling. We will also touch on that in this session later on. Now, the profiling is a first stab, if we can call it, at a company to find out what they do. And in this instance, we must remember, the profiling covers the following. It covers general information of the company. It covers the size. It gives us the size of the company. How many people work there, what their output is, what their income, what their overall the turnover is, profit margins. We look at the products. What do they produce? In what game are they? What game are they playing? What are the facilities? What facilities do they have? That gives you an idea of their capabilities in the manufacturing industry, because we must remember the SPX, we concentrate on the manufacturing industry. And the facilities that are given will give us a good idea of what they're capable of doing. Their clients. The clients is a good indication of a company's sustainability. And it also gives us information on how long those people or the clients have been clients of that organization or the company. And that gives an idea of their sustainability and how strong they are. The other aspect which is covered in the profiling is what raw material do they use, how much do they use, and it gives an idea of the ratio of raw material to final product. In other words, efficiencies. And then there are also aspects that are investigated in the profiling, covering softer issues, as we mentioned earlier. You know, do they have certificates? Do they have quality certificates? Do they have environmental certificates, sustainability certificates, trade policies, labor policies, etc. So those are very important. The profiling information of the companies are shared with the buyer. This is totally open. It's an open. There are no hidden agendas. So the suppliers also know when they are in the running, when they have responded, when they want to be on the list, they will be scrutinized. Number one, they will then, after the scrutiny, when they're matched to the product or the opportunity, they will be exposed to the potential buyer. And that is an unwritten rule, and mostly the suppliers do not have a problem with that. And they must be told up front that the profiling information will be shared. There will obviously not being shared aspects which the company is sensitive about, but in the profiling it's general information, and they are totally aware of the fact that what they put in on the profiling will be revealed. It's totally different than in the benchmarking, which we will touch on later. Now, a very exciting mechanism or a methodology, or I would say a tool which is used, or an instrument which follows the profiling, is benchmarking. In the first session, we touched on benchmarking. Now, benchmarking is a worldwide phenomenon. It's a worldwide methodology, and that is to compare companies with other companies that are in the same business and more or less playing in the same space, and as we said, also more or less the same size. So the benchmarking information provides additional information to the profiling information, and the benchmarking gives us a good idea of the practices and sustainability of the company. The benchmarking instrument has two sections. The first section is a questionnaire which interrogates that company's, shall we say, results, their performance, its general questions, like their lead times, their sizes, what the product is. It's in fact almost an extended profiling questionnaire. And there you get an idea of how big and what the company is doing, etc. It's an extended profiling of the company. Then there's a part B, where the company actually scores themselves on practices, and that is, in other words, on their processes and how good they are actually doing. That is very important, and that information can be drawn when we receive the responses from the suppliers, after they've been scrutinized, after they've been evaluated, before we send them or we share them with the buyers. These two instruments, profiling, benchmarking, is crucial for us and to inform us and inform SPX to give an accurate estimation or a recommendation to the buyer. The benchmark measures practices in the following 4 areas. As I just said to you, as we just mentioned, the benchmarking measures practices, and that is where the company actually scores itself on financial. How do they do financially? This is a tool that has been designed in a way that when they answer these questions, you get a good idea whether they are good financially or not so good or bad. They score themselves on customer and markets. The customers are absolutely a pivotal part of any company, and therefore your customer relations should be absolutely spot on. And looking at markets, do they do marketing? Have they got a big enough market? Are they actually serving the right market? Are they serving enough of the market which they can? In other words, are they not underperforming? Are they not underselling themselves? Those are the things that are being picked up and the aspects from the company. Operations. The operations refer mostly to their processes. And there they also score, and the score is taken into consideration on this in finding and in evaluating a company. And then an aspect which in many instances I would think, and that's my opinion, in many companies is underestimated and maybe not exploited enough, and that is learning and growth. Now, learning and growth, if a company is not prepared to improve the people, to develop their people, to do research, to develop new technologies, product development. These are all the aspects that could assist the company in growing, in becoming better. And the four aspects which I've just mentioned, financial, customer and markets, operations, learning and growth, you'll go far to find anything else which is significant enough. And these four aspects cover everything operational, or shall we say, on the side of the company's performance, and on the practices, in other words, processes, etc. So that is a very important tool for SPX to assist in evaluating our suppliers. Suppliers who qualify are then further evaluated according to quality systems, and this we've been talking about over and over. Sustainability and capacity and capability, etc., which we would talk about the softer issues. Labor practices, the other aspects would be trade principles, corporate governance. Corporate governance, absolutely one of the upcoming and growing phenomenon and principles of successful business. Now we link the suppliers to specific opportunities, taking into consideration careful assessment to ensure realistic matchmaking. We link the suppliers to specific opportunities, and that's where the SPX plays a crucial role. Our knowledge, our intelligence, our market intelligence, our information, our data, our body of knowledge, that is what in 25 years the SPX have grown, and they have developed this asset. And this asset is the very, very crucial part. And this slide, probably, if we would reflect one day, or reflect while you're studying, or when we reflect on this course, this is probably the most important link and the most important aspect of the SPX functioning. If a company qualifies for more than one opportunity, what do? That's no problem. It's good. The company qualifies for more than one opportunity, and if they qualify, they are presented to the buyers for more than one opportunity. If they have the capability and capacity, the buyer would take the decision. We would make a suggestion, and in many instances, bigger organizations could handle that. It's not something to disqualify, obviously, any supplier. The outcome of this initial shortlisting is 2 to 3 companies matched to an opportunity. We want to get to that point where we could say to a buyer, here are the opportunities that you gave us. We have matched these companies or these potential suppliers. And there is a very important aspect coupled to this. And that is, we will have to verify, be very, very, very clear, and it must be very accurate. We'll have to be very accurate in what we tell the buyer about our potential supplier. Those 3 suppliers are now on an initial shortlist. Remember, it's an initial shortlist. Additional search for suppliers where no responses were received. If no responses have been received from the list of opportunities, what do? We utilize the SPX network We have database. We have a huge database. The SPX network has many customers, suppliers on the databases. And one could investigate and go to these databases to find suppliers. This could happen, as we said earlier. It could happen that when a list goes out, the companies either miss the opportunity or they don't see it, they don't see the alert, they were not aware of it. Many reasons could be put forward why there were no responses. So we must make sure that we catch and maybe to improvise and to go out and see why, where, and find suppliers. Why not? We can also go out and find suppliers, even if there were no responses. Identify additional suppliers, identify them. The association directories, coming back to the associations, very important, the associations, that we use the directories of the associations on finding more suppliers. Not only the directories of the associations, I think we can also again mention and go back to what we said about the other databases. There are many sources of companies. There are many sources of suppliers. There are many sources of businesses in any country. But then we must ask ourselves the question: what is our role as the SPX? If there are so many databases, if there are so many sources out there, what is our role? What do we do? That is exactly what we have to ask ourselves. And the answer to that is that we have the mechanisms of bringing buyers, suppliers in touch and to match them, to bring them together. As we can see, as we're going through these sessions, we can see the rationale. We can see there's a very well structured process. It will happen. I can tell you, learners, it will happen that the SPX will not be needed in certain instances. We have found that. We have found that many, and we must not fool ourselves. There are many transactions taking place outside of the SPX. But the SPX should build itself and its credibility, and that is happening gradually. And that is to say to the business fraternity that we have a very special value addition and a value add to take into consideration to assist. An example, for instance, Big Buyer sourced a number of suppliers for a big project, and we went and saw them, we had a meeting with them, and we said to them, have you now got all your suppliers? Are you happy that you covered? It was an OEM. Are you happy you've got all your suppliers? And the answer was, yes, we have our normal suppliers, we've got our regular suppliers, people that we've used in the past, the last 20 years, the last 15 years. We won't deviate from that. There's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do, we can say to them, the SPX can give you access to more and new suppliers. Something to remember. A task team can be put together to discuss the opportunities. I want to just mention here, this is not the task team This is not a task team as was discussed in the scenario of the hubs. Remember in the previous session, we spoke about hubs being formed by a group of interested parties to develop and to actually develop an opportunity to ripen an opportunity, and then also to harness the opportunity and to harness that opportunity and to get into business as a group, as an interest group. This is a task team that could be put together to actually add to what we've said earlier in finding suppliers, and also the task team is always a good it's a good mechanism, but we must remember this task team will have to be related. A task team will have to be people from a related industry, not necessarily the same products, but they must complement each other, and as a group there must be a bargaining power, and I think that is really the word to use. Is a task team can give bargaining power and to exploit an opportunity. Could be done in the following way: identify task teams, identify team members, associations, industry experts, government, the buyer. Very much like the task team which we spoke about at the hub, but in this case, the purpose of this task team is slightly different. And this should be harnessed more, or this should be used more. And it's a very powerful mechanism in finding more suppliers. Set up a task team meeting where the opportunities are discussed and where the members nominate specific or more suppliers. Meetings of the task team, opportunities are discussed where the members nominate specific or more suppliers. Very much the same as a hub. As we said, just a slightly different slant on the purpose. Could be done in the following way. The suppliers are then approached and assessed to potentially be included. Now this is now not only from the task team, this is now going back, if I may. Additional search for suppliers where no responses were received. We must bear that in mind. We use our network, identify additional suppliers, the association directories and other databases, many sources of info. A task team, identify task team members, various role players, to set up a task team meeting, to talk about the opportunities. And this is all coordinated and facilitated by SPX. We must remember that. These suppliers are then approached, and this is not only on the task team, these suppliers that have been now identified, the ones that did not respond, extra suppliers, we must remember that. Then, the next topic that we're going to talk about is the initial shortlist, where the obvious non-starters will be deleted. It's obvious that if we get a shortlist, the non-starters, all the obvious non-starters have been deleted. As we said earlier, buyers have indicated their preference regarding suppliers for opportunities. The buyers have now, after SPX have come up with the suppliers, and they have suggested 2 to 3 suppliers per opportunity. The buyers can now indicate. They have a look at it, scrutinize them, and they then say, fine, we will engage further with these suppliers. Then a spreadsheet with the opportunity, possible suppliers per opportunity, and supporting documentation, profiles, benchmark information. This is a spreadsheet which can be used in this process, and this will also be available to the learners on or in the study material. Now we get to the further evaluation of suppliers and final shortlist. Now we're getting to the climax of the process up to now. Further evaluation of suppliers. Remember that initial evaluation and scrutiny of our suppliers and suggesting them to our buyers, that is a precursor. It's not final, it is almost final, but it's not the final matchmaking process. The SPX has built in a safety net, and that safety net we can call the further evaluation, because there may be aspects that are not so clear in the initial evaluation. So let us have a look at how we do this. This final assessment will also verify information such as, now we're getting back to what we said are essentially called the soft issues, but remember, I think it was in the third session or before, we did mention that the softer issues and the softer matters are becoming, some of them are becoming hard and harder in that sense. In other words, they are becoming more important as crucial drivers in the evaluation process of suppliers and for qualifying the suppliers. Quality certifications have been spoken about at length. Now, it may happen that a supplier have been selected is one of the 3 that the buyer is interested in. The buyer starts looking into this company, because remember, it's face value. The first initial contact, the buyer will see it fits into their spectrum, it fits into what they want. It seems as though this company is capable, it seems that this company has got capacity, they like the look of the company, they're happy. But there are uncomfortable questions that then follow. And that is before they are really starting to do business. And in many instances, I can tell you, in our country, in South Africa, without being negative, but because we have a number and a lot of small companies and up and running or up and coming companies, SMEs, we are very, very determined to suggest and to use these companies. But in many cases, they still have to go through the processes, for instance, of quality certifications. You will probably find it in your country, that you will have the same situation, that a lot of and a number of potential candidates, companies that can do business, fall short on aspects like quality certification, fall short on capacity and capabilities. They fall short on a track record, because they may be a very new company. They may be very new, they may have the potential, but they're still new companies. previous experience, which latches and links onto track record. A company may be very keen, they may be very well positioned, they may have a very strong and a very good management core of people. They may have the willingness, and unwillingness is something we can also talk for ages on. A company may be capable, may be good, have the capacity, but they're not willing. They don't want to develop. They don't want new customers. They don't want to get into new markets. We find that the SPX has a role to play in that, because if they are enticed by good and real opportunities, suppliers will respond positively. I'm going to mention it again. Many companies, many contenders that are at the point of actually doing business, or that have been selected, pre-selected by a buyer, unfortunately, sadly, they will fall short on these four: quality certifications, capacity capabilities, track record, previous experience, and the trade practices may not be in place. Environmental certification is a major problem, major shortcoming in many companies. And sustainability. Now, sustainability is a very heavy and a loaded term. Sustainability just means not only environmental sustainability. We all know the sustainability credo, or the definition, or the shall we say, the traditional definition of sustainability, and that is that we must live in a way that does not compromise the future of our children, and that refers to resources, it refers to the quality of our environment, and the quality of our people, our value systems. There are so many aspects that are taken up in this sustainability concept. And it's important, it's very important for the SPX program to keep cognizance of the sustainability aspects of a company. It actually determines everything if one really looks at it. If we want to philosophize about it, sustainability in its broader sense, it actually entails everything we've said on this slide and the previous points on this slide. Labor practices. One can talk again for a long time about labor practices, and it's becoming a very important point. We know that United Nations are very shall we say, assertive, and they're doing a lot of work on labor practices, and this is becoming more and more under scrutiny. It's becoming more and more under scrutiny in all companies by buyers, especially overseas, and big buyers. Sharing the final shortlist with a buyer. Now we've done everything. We are now very sure that this company and this supplier, they conform to all the requirements that the buyer wants, and also the other ones that the government wants, and therefore we say this is part of the regular meetings between the buyer and the SPX program. They will then talk to us. This will be discussed in the next lesson, because that is where the shortlist is now taken further and where we engage with the final shortlist. Please refer to the attached example of a final shortlist. That will also be in your study material. I thank you.